Candidate for Governor, Tom Marsh.
Well, you'd think there's nothing left to be said. And a lot of the things that I would be talking about if I went first, I'm not going to bring up now because we do have a lot of commonality amongst the candidates, and I think that's a very positive thing. I don't know that I changed any minds at the table I was sitting with, but hopefully by the end of the evening we'll have a much better idea of what you're looking for in your next candidate for governor. As I said, there's some commonalities, and one of the things I like to bring up is I too am a CEO of a corporation. But my corporation, when we're not in one of the worst recessions ever, it employs maybe 20 people. These days we're more around 15. I think that's a perspective that's going to be necessary in the office of governor. I'm also the CEO of a municipality. It's a small town. It makes up the same kind of demographic cross-section as about 70% of the small towns or towns in Connecticut. I think that's an important perspective that we need to bring to the governor's office. I think that's what makes me different. I represent 70% of the businesses in the state. I represent 70% of the small towns in the state. And I'm proud to say over 20 years our business has been successful. And Chester was recently named the best small town in Connecticut in Connecticut Magazine. And we were able to do that without spending a lot of money, having a lot of policies and programs that just crimp what people want to do in our community. We do it with good old-fashioned common sense. What I'm looking to bring to the office of the governor is something that I just don't hear from the other candidates. And that's the involvement of municipal government in the level of state governance. When you think about it, we look around the room here, we have a Democratic senator, a Democratic representative, but we have Noel in Westbrook, who's a Republican. I'm in Chester, I'm a Republican. We have Paul in Haddam, who's a Republican. We have Mark in East Haddam, who's a Republican. We have Mike Pace in Old Saybrook, who's a Republican. How is it that we get all of these Republicans in office at the local level and we don't get them in the legislature? And the reason is because at the local level, we are accountable. You look us in the face. You see us on the street and you say, Tom, I like what you're doing. I like the way you're handling the budget. Or they say, Tom, I didn't like that last thing too much. You know what? I'm not too sure we need to spend $1 million on land on the Connecticut River. That accountability is what's missing at state governance. And as we've heard a number of times, we think that there's going to be progress at the legislature. We think we're going to pick up seats in the House and Senate, but they're still going to be there. And no matter what rhetoric is espoused, we have to remember what the office of governor allows you to do. You can veto. You can veto bills, you can veto line items. That's a significant power. And that's something that needs to be held over the legislature. And we've seen some of that in the past. Something maybe we don't see so much is the authority that we have over the commissioners. So much of what goes on and what makes business in Connecticut difficult is not so much the taxation, although there's certainly room for improvement, but is the regulation that is done in all of the different commissions in this state. As a small business owner, I can tell you it is impossible to get through what needs to be done to conduct a normal course of business without a staff. You know, when you only have 15 or 20 people, you don't have experts in too much of anything. You have what you know, and you ask for help. And as what has been mentioned, there is never help at the state. There is only a fist to tell you what you're doing wrong. That perspective has to be brought to the legislature through the bully pulpit of the governor's office. That's the other tool that they have that I just don't see being used. If down here at this level, if we're holding our municipal leaders accountable, but at the legislature there's for some reason getting us free pass, we need a governor who is up taking the bat of the folks down at the local level to say to the legislature, you know, I was out amongst the towns. We need to talk to municipal leaders. This is what they put me in office to do. This is what they're in office to do. And you're going to start doing what they want done. And you need that bully pulpit. You need that voice at the top to support the folks down here at the bottom. All the people sitting in this room, the ones that we all are doing the right thing. It's common sense, and it's not a Republican message. One common thing that if you heard from the candidates tonight, I have in Chester 25% Republican registration. Mark Boughton, who was here earlier, is something that it's the same way. There's another, the mayor of Newington is running as well. We are all Republicans who have been successful and are now winning with 60% and plus pluralities in Democratic towns because it's not a Republican or Democratic issue. common sense, fiscal responsibility, and practicality are an issue that we all share. And we've heard that Connecticut is a blue state. It may be on national politics because people, I think, haven't been paying attention, and I think we're going to see significant change at this national level. But we are not a blue state. We are a conservative state when it comes down to brass tacks, and that's why we have a majority of first selectmen and mayors in this state. We have 90 out of 169. How is it a blue state? When at the local level, when you're held accountable, people want to see what they believe in. That's the level where it happens. And that's the power that has to be brought to the governor's office. Because no matter what, it's going to take a couple of cycles to get the legislature back around. They're going to be there, and they're going to have to be dealt with. The governor can't set taxation. They can't get rid of legislation all on their own. They have to get the legislature to do the bidding of the people. And the only way that's going to happen is to use the power that exists. And that power exists in rooms like this, in meeting houses around the state. The state is not broken. Hartford government is broken. But local government is working, and it's working well. And as your governor, I will see to it that that efficiency is brought to the state level, and we are going to see change. So I think by the end of tonight, you're going to have an idea of who you think should be your governor or who you shouldn't be your governor. We all have something to bring to the table, and what I'm bringing is a perspective of small towns, a perspective of small business, a passion for home rule, a passion for what we have right here in this state, and an extreme fear of regionalization. And I'm not going to go into a whole other thing. There's a number of the folks that are in this room that know my passion there. But on both sides of the fence, some of the solutions to this problem under the guise of efficiencies is let's create a new layer of regional government, a new layer of taxation. Mayor DeStefano in Hartford's already talking about having a sales tax, a regional sales tax. Is that going to keep our local folks here? Is that going to keep our young folks here? Is that going to bring a job to this state? It's not going to do any of those things. It's going to create another level of taxation that's going to push us off the cliff. And finally, the last thing I'll talk about is specifics of what we can do is to take some of the state revenue that is generated in all of our municipalities, the state income tax and the sales tax, that's easily identifiable from every return that's sent by your zip code, and instead of sending all that money up to Hartford and go through the mix master, to let the towns keep a portion of that. Small towns such as ours, we get maybe a dime back on the dollar that goes up. And then we have to beg for grants or matching grants or a little bit of money to do this, that, the other thing. The bureaucracy of just having that go up there and come back is mind-boggling. So what if they just let the towns keep some of the money that they generate already? I was at a meeting a couple of years ago where Don Williams, the Senate Pro Tem, said, I've been down in the basement of the Capitol, and I can't find the money printing machine. And I said, Senator, that's because it's in Chester. We're the ones printing the money for you. You don't print it up here. Let us keep some of it ourselves. Let us get rid of some of that bureaucracy, and just by streamlining that, not having so many hands touch it, we're going to see some efficiencies both at the state level and at the town level. And it's not a big town, small town issue. We have the Deputy Director of Finance on our Board of Finance in our town for Hartford. They have 430 revenue line items from the state for the city of Hartford. Think of the bureaucracy that causes. Even if the bigger cities who are getting $1.50 or more back on the dollar were at least able to manage some of that money locally, it would greatly reduce the need for 55,000+ employees at state level. Not by some draconian cut, let's just get rid of 10%. Getting rid of 10% will just make them 25% more efficient. But take away some of the mundane bureaucratic tasks that don't provide value to anyone. Not to you as a resident, not to me as a business owner, and not to me as a municipal leader. So, for the details on this, on how to redo pension plans for state employees, how to streamline some taxation, make us more accountable at the local level, and stop cutting our support for state parks, quit doubling fees for pistol permits and whatnot, all of that can be found on my website, marsh2010.com. Every page is exciting. I encourage you to peruse the entire thing, set aside a fair amount of time, at least as much time as you spent here this evening. But if you don't like what I had to say tonight, don't bother going to my website. But if you're intrigued by what I had to say, I would appreciate you to visit the website and take a little of that into consideration.